Hello, and thank you for joining us today for the Cayman Islands Government's virtual forum on the draft National Energy Policy. My name is Jennifer Ahern, and I am the Chief Officer in the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency, and I'm very excited to welcome you here today. Public consultation is an essential part of our democratic process, but we know that the amount of surveys and meetings can seem overwhelming at times. Right now, the government has no less than 3 public consultations taking place, on top of the STEPS Health Survey and the Household Budget Survey. We know that your time is valuable and that you have a lot of different priorities demanding your attention. And that's why the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency is testing this new digital town hall format as a way of ensuring that everyone in our community can access this information on demand. So you can tune in live, or you can watch the recording when it's convenient for you. Over the next hour, you will hear from the Premier and Minister for Sustainability and Climate Resiliency, the Honourable Wayne Panton, the Deputy Governor, the Honourable Frans Manderson, and representatives from our ministry team, the Energy Policy Council, the Utility Regulation and Competition Office of the Cayman Islands, and the Caribbean Utilities Company. Throughout this presentation, you can submit your questions by commenting on the live streams on social media or by emailing us at energy@gov.ky. During the panel discussion at the end of the presentations, we are looking forward to answering as many of your questions as possible. And now, without further ado, I am delighted to welcome the Honourable Premier Panton to kick off today's virtual forum with his opening address. Premier.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and good morning to everyone. Let me add my welcome. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us on this very important discussion in relation to our national energy policy, 2023 to 2050. Thank you all again. I know some of you are on social media, some are on CIG TV, some on Radio Cayman, and hopefully you will learn a lot more about the draft updated national energy policy. The policy, as some of you may recall, was first approved in 2017 for a 20-year period. So that would have taken us up to 2037. Included in the policy is the requirement for a 5-year review to be undertaken to make sure that the goals, strategies, implementation plan stay up to date as progress is made, or allow for adjustments to be made if targets are not being met. So later on in this presentation, you will hear more about the 5-year review process, how stakeholder feedback was being incorporated into the updated draft policy. So while a great deal has been achieved over the last 5 years, perhaps more so than some of us realize, we know beyond a doubt that we need to pick up the pace. We absolutely need to make more progress on this, and especially now that energy is a very specific issue that is at the forefront of people's minds in relation to the cost of living issues. We also have, as you know, rising temperatures in addition to rising costs, and it is absolutely getting more and more expensive to keep our homes cool, to keep the lights on, and keep our appliances running. I've heard many of you discuss the fact that you haven't been making any changes, but your utility bill is going up. Unfortunately, that's a result of temperatures increasing. So that is only added impetus for us to make significant progress in relation to this issue. Over the past year and a half, the government has worked to try to address the rising cost of living issues through a number of initiatives and programs. And an early example of this was the Electricity Assistance Program, which we did last year in partnership with the local utility companies. That program and that initiative helped 22,000 households across the country across all three of our islands. And so a significant number of people benefited from that 7-month program. The latest example of initiative in relation to this issue is the recently launched Cayman Home Energy Efficiency Retrofits, or CHEER program, which aims to provide energy efficiency upgrades for eligible Caymanian homeowners who are struggling with high utility bills. The application for this program is open until 31st August. So I encourage all of you that think that you're eligible, review the requirements, and please apply before the end of the month. But of course, we in government recognize that short-term interventions have to be combined with both medium and long-term initiatives to enhance energy security, to increase climate resiliency, and more importantly, provide clean, affordable power to everyone in our community. That's why updating this national energy policy is so very important. We have to shift away from a reliance on expensive, polluting fossil fuels to reliable, clean, affordable, renewable energy. On our three islands, in the sun, with our soft, fresh breezes, are blessed with an abundance of potential of natural resources to tap into and to convert to clean energy. So as you'll hear later on the updated draft policy, there is a greater emphasis on energy efficiency, social equity, energy storage, and proposed new targets for renewable energy, electric vehicles, and greenhouse gas emission reductions. The proposed long-term targets include a 100% target of renewable energy by 2050. Another is 100% new vehicle sales from electric vehicles by 2045 for light-duty vehicles, and by 2050 for medium and heavy-duty vehicles. 100% emissions reductions from electricity supply by 2050 is another important target. And last but not least, a 90% target of emission reductions from ground transportation by 2050. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know that these are ambitious targets, but they are important. They're critically important to our energy security, our maintaining a reasonable cost of living, and improving our environment. I'm sure that as you listen to the presentation today, you will have questions and you'll have concerns about whether those targets are achievable, or how we meet those targets without driving up costs to the consumer. It is possible, and you will hear more in relation to that. The big question is, what are the costs to our people, our economy, and our environment if we do not make these changes? When we have families whose homes are hot boxes because they're so inefficient, and families who cannot afford to keep the air conditioning on for their elderly relatives or children with disabilities, then it's clear that business as usual is not going to work for us anymore. When I look ahead 27 years from now to the year 2050, I know what I want to see. I want to see a Cayman Islands which isn't continuously at the mercy of volatility in international energy markets or fuel markets. I want to see a Cayman powered by wind, by solar energy, possibly by wave energy. All things that our Creator has blessed us with. A Cayman where we do not have to dread the energy bill coming every month. At least we'll have more certainty as to what it looks like. A Cayman that has gone from being one of the highest emitters of greenhouse gases in the Caribbean to one of the most sustainable countries in the world. As I've said often, the Cayman I see is a trio of islands where all its citizens can thrive, a peaceful and prosperous place, known for its resourcefulness, its diligence, its excellence, and its innovativeness. In closing, I want to thank all of you for joining us here today, both those people in the studio as well as you who are watching. Importantly, please continue to watch. Please continue to engage. I want to thank the members of the National Energy Policy Committee. I want to encourage all members to read the policy for yourself. Go to www.gov.ky/National Energy Policy, and you will see the draft there. It is critically important to us. You will find all the information there that you need to know about how this draft differs from the 2017 draft and how you can provide your feedback in respect to that. Please remember to send your comments through as well to the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency, either by emailing energy@gov.ky or using the digital feedback form available on the website by the 31st of August, meaning make sure you get your comments in by the 31st. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful day. God bless our wonderful Cayman Islands.
Thank you very much, Premier Panton, for those inspiring words. I'd now like to invite the Deputy Governor, the Honourable Frans Manderson, to come and offer a few remarks. DG?
Good morning, everyone. I would like to echo the sentiments shared by Premier Panton and to assure him that we very much support his vision of what he would like to achieve, which he said very clearly this morning. I want to also thank Ms. Ahern and her team for putting on this program this morning. The public has been critical of the government and the civil service in the past for not allowing them opportunities to consult and to give their feedback. And today we have listened and we are doing things differently to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to comment and to provide feedback on this very important initiative. I had the opportunity to attend the public sector focus group as part of the 5-year review of the National Energy Policy in February. And I remember the challenge the Premier issued to the audience at that meeting. He said, "Will our children and grandchildren look back on these policies and dismiss them as nice words, worth less than the paper they are written on? Or will they look back and say that our actions matched our ambition?" That is a very powerful statement and something that we should all take heed to and do our best to not disappoint our grandchildren. This is a challenge faced by policymakers across the Cayman Islands and indeed around the world. Successful policy achieves what it is set out to do, whether that is to achieve 100% renewable energy by 2050 or ensure older persons have the opportunity to engage in lifelong learning. Successful policy has the support of key stakeholders targeted by the policy. In other words, the people who are set to be most impacted by the success or failure of the policy. And successful policy has broad-reaching buy-in across each sector of our community, creating a ripple effect across our society when individuals and organizations outside of government can see the benefits of the policy in their own lives, communities, and workplaces. These are all reasons why public consultation is so critical to policy development. Your input helps us better define the challenges we are trying to solve, helps us become aware of our blind spots and avoid unintended pitfalls, and helps us determine the matrix of success, not just from facts and figures perspective, but from the real impacts on you and your family. As a democracy, that is our civic duty. Our governance framework gives us a voice. It's up to each of us to use it. From this perspective of policymakers in the civil service, our responsibility is to engage in this dialogue, to listen to your comments, questions, and concerns, and to be transparent in how we use your feedback to refine our policies. That's our commitment as part of our purpose to make the lives of those we serve better. So my message today, my message to everyone joining us today is to take advantage of every opportunity to provide feedback on government policy, bills, and initiatives. Your input is an invaluable part of the process. We simply cannot do this without you. My message to all policymakers joining us today is to take all the steps you can to ensure you are not building policies in a vacuum. Breaking down silos is such an important goal for the civil service that is part of our performance review process. We have to continue to be collaborative and ensure cross-agency alignment whenever possible. No matter who you are or where you work, I encourage you to think about how you can achieve the benefits of these policies once they are approved. We do not need to wait to be told what to do. We can recognize the ambition and take steps right now to match it with action. With that, I would like to thank everyone for tuning in today, whether you're live or everyone who's going to listen on the recording. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about this policy. I encourage you to learn more about the other opportunities for public consultation, which is currently available by visiting www.ky.com/public-consultations. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Deputy Governor. As the Premier mentioned, the National Energy Policy Draft 2023 to 2050 is an update of the 2017 to 2037 version of the policy. To produce this updated policy, the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency and the Energy Policy Council worked with a consulting agency and public and private sector stakeholders to review the 2017 policy, discuss key concerns, and develop the revised policy and implementation plan. I'd now like to invite our Senior Policy Advisor for Energy, Ms. Kristen Smith, to the podium to share a bit more about the 5-year review process.
Good morning, and thank you for taking the time to tune into this virtual forum, which we hope you find more convenient and engaging. We started the 5-year review process in September 2022, and through a competitive bid process, we contracted the Cadmus Group as the technical expert to assist with the review. The first step in the process to update the National Energy Policy and the implementation plan was the drafting of the baseline report. Cadmus had one-to-one meetings with key stakeholders, monthly meetings with the Energy Policy Council, and bi-weekly meetings with the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency to produce this report. This document synthesizes the global and regional context that influence the Cayman Islands energy sector, summarizes the policy context of the country's energy sector, and provides an overview of energy use. It also benchmarks policy and implementation plan against 4 island nations: Hawaii, Barbados, Bahamas, and the Republic of Marshall Islands. Lastly, the baseline report presents a quantitative analysis of progress towards meeting the policy targets. The document is available to download on gov.ky/National Energy Policy, along with the updated draft policy and implementation plan and other helpful resources. The 5-year review process also involved extensive stakeholder engagement with the public and key stakeholders. We hosted a public feedback survey from December 2022 to January 2023, which had 395 respondents. We held 2 half-day focus group meetings in February with approximately 80 members of the public sector, which included chief officers and heads of department on day 1, and 70 members of the private sector on day 2. These sessions, plus the engagement survey, the one-to-one meetings, and the baseline report, helped inform the list of recommendations to revise and update the national energy policy. The survey revealed some important insights from the public. The overwhelming majority of respondents said they would support policies to reduce the use of fossil fuels. The vast majority also said they would support policies to reduce carbon emissions. And most respondents were also willing to adopt a variety of technologies and modes of transport in their personal lives. From the survey focus group sessions and one-to-one meetings, we identified some key themes that form the basis of the main recommended changes that have been incorporated into the draft updated National Energy Policy and Implementation Plan. The 5-year review also had a strong focus on implementation. The next speaker will delve more into the details as to what these recommendations were and what the proposed 5-year priorities are for the 2023 to 2027 period. In conclusion, I want to encourage everyone to visit gov.ky/national energy policy, check out the documents we have available for you to download, and to please provide your comments by the 31st of August deadline, either via the survey link, which is on the website, or emailing us at energy@gov.ky. Thank you, and we look forward to hearing your questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Kristen, for that. I'm now going to invite Mr. James Whitaker, who is the chairman of the Energy Policy Council, to provide us with an overview of the key recommendations that came out of the 5-year review process and tell us about how those have been incorporated into the updated policy and implementation plan. Mr. Whitaker.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Cayman. As chairman of the Energy Policy Council, I'm very pleased to be here today to provide additional information on the draft and updated policy and implementation plan. And I look forward to answering your questions when we move into the question and answer phase of this virtual event. I'm going to quickly run through the key recommendations that Kristen mentioned and explain how they have been incorporated into the updated policy and implementation plan. During the 5-year review process, stakeholders expressed an interest in incorporating additional energy resiliency measures in the updated policy. Key changes include exploring opportunities for microgrids at critical infrastructure like hospitals, schools, and water services, incorporating physical and cybersecurity standards for electricity infrastructure and data management. Stakeholders also advocated for a greater emphasis on social equity, to provide greater access to renewable energy technology, training, and job opportunities for all members of society. Key changes including affordable in the updated policy vision statement, promoting equal access to distributed energy capacity allocations, access to low-cost and storage financing for low-income households, workshops and/or resources and raising of awareness for professional and educational opportunities, scholarships in partnership with private sector educational institutions, government support for training, knowledge sharing, and professional opportunities for all Caymanians, including women and low-income persons and communities. The updated policy includes provisions for government to promote safe handling of end-of-life batteries, duty reductions, and the installation of energy storage at new government buildings. The updated policy also includes a provision for the regulator to conduct a study on time-of-use tariffs for renewable energy, energy storage, and electric vehicle charging. The electric utility, regulator, and a number of other stakeholders expressed an interest in greater measures to promote energy efficiency. Key changes include Cayman Electric Utilities should develop demand response programs to promote load shifting and energy efficiency programs to reduce energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. Additionally, the government should consider adopting the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code, CREEBC, and the International Residential Code's Chapter 11 Energy Efficiency Standards, two leading industry guidelines. The survey we conducted as part of the 5-year review showed additional opportunities for public outreach. To build upon the government's outreach efforts, key changes to the policy include developing and launching a public awareness campaign that informed the public on legislation, incentives, programs, and initiatives supporting sustainable energy and how to participate in and benefit from. In particular, develop informational campaigns to convey to the public building code amendments, government initiatives including the National Energy Policy and Implementation Plan, as well as renewable energy financing. Stakeholders suggested changes to promote electric vehicles in the updated policy, and those key changes include government to establish a regulatory framework to promote electric vehicles, EVs, and EV charging network, including mandated electric vehicle charging spots at all new residential and commercial parking lots and parking violation standards. Open access charging protocols to allow EV drivers to use any charger regardless of vehicle type or membership. Government lead a public awareness campaign to highlight the benefits of electric vehicles. And all initiatives to promote electric vehicles should also consider renewable energy capacity needed to account for the increased electric load. Stakeholders recommended to government to establish a 5-year cadence to review incentives and duties to support the penetration of electric vehicles, renewable energy, and energy efficiency technologies. Those key changes included maintaining 0% duty on electric vehicles and renewable energy components for the next 5 years, considering an increase on duties on importing internal combustion engine vehicles and incentives for exporting such vehicles off island in the medium term, as well as implementing additional duty waivers on energy efficient technologies as recommended by government and private sector stakeholders. Stakeholders stressed the urgency of securing land for utility-scale renewable energy, given the rising cost of land and limited space for renewable energy penetration, with attention paid to the environmental impact specifically. The policy includes a provision to prioritize existing developed space, such as brownfield sites, quarry lakes, rooftops, and parking lots. Stakeholders provided perspectives on a number of actions related to distributed solar generation, specifically a customer's right to solar energy, the role of the value of solar study in setting rates, the role of Cayman Utilities in the distributed generation market, and the definition for distributed generation capacity. Given the multiple valuable perspectives and technical analysis required to address these questions, further discussions are necessary prior to making additions to the policy on these specific topics. Recommendations for advancing these discussions are included in the policy and implementation plan. The updated policy includes that government establish and disseminate clear guidelines and responsible parties for utility integrated resource planning processes. A quantitative model was utilized to analyze the targets and make any recommendations and revisions necessary. The recommendation was to adopt new national targets for renewable energy, electric vehicles, and greenhouse gas emissions. The current policy has a goal of 70% renewable energy by 2037. The updated policy keeps this goal, but also proposes an interim target of 30% by 2030 and a longer-term target of 100% renewable energy by 2050. These renewable energy targets are in line with the targets of peer countries and global trends toward the viability of utility-scale and distributed solar, as well as wind energy and other innovative technologies throughout the next 2 decades. A key recommendation is that the government establish a renewable energy portfolio standard enforced by law to ensure that these targets are met. The updated policy includes the proposal for 30% of new sales of light-duty vehicles, LDVs, to come from EVs by 2030 and 100% by 2045. For medium and heavy-duty vehicles, the target is 30% of new sales to come from EVs by 2030 and 100% by 2050. Many U.S. states and European countries have made commitments to achieve a full transition to zero-emission vehicles in all categories by 2040. The updated NEP includes a slightly stronger framework to achieve 100% new EV sales to allow time to develop a vehicle mandate around these targets. Essential policy discussions involve developing a regulatory framework for electric vehicle chargers, engaging with the private sector on the implementation mandate, and continuing to incentivize and raise awareness on job opportunities and consumer benefits of electric vehicle use. The proposed emissions targets for electricity emissions are 40% emissions reductions over 2019 levels by 2030 and 100% reduction by 2050. The proposed emissions targets for the ground transportation sector are 35% emissions reductions over 2019 levels by 2030, 80% by 2045, and 90% by 2050. These emission targets are associated with renewable energy and electric vehicle targets. The 5-year review process also helped update the implementation plan and recommended 5-year priorities with a monitoring section with specific data to track the results. Prioritizing these actions between now and 2027 will help jumpstart further progress toward these targets. The 5-year priorities fall into 3 categories. 1, electricity generation. 2, energy efficiency and transportation. And 3, socioeconomic and environmental considerations. The key priorities for the socioeconomic and environmental considerations include: between 2023 and 2024, facilitate the development of green financial incentives for consumer-owned renewable energy systems and continue the development of assistance programs for the inclusion of energy production, efficiency, and storage systems within buildings. Between 2025 and 2027, develop workshops, resources, and/or awareness campaigns on job and educational opportunities in the energy and transportation industry for all Caymanians. For electricity generation, key priorities include: between 2023 and 2024, commission utility-scale renewable energy projects that include storage, assess the role of government majority ownership of renewable energy, develop policies to expand access to consumer-owned renewable energy, government to oversee the utility integrated resource planning process, and develop a plan to secure land for utility-scale renewable energy generation. Between 2025 and 2027, issue guidelines on innovation in electricity generation. For energy efficiency and transportation, key priorities include: between 2023 and 2024, develop a framework for EV charging infrastructure and reduce the duty on all EVs to 0% for an additional 5 years, while exploring the possibility of increasing duties for inefficient vehicles. And finally, between 2025 and 2027, adopt regional and international efficiency codes where appropriate and explore the development of energy efficiency programs. Now, I know this is a lot of information and it's a lot to take in, but more information is also available at www.gov.ky/national energy policy. I encourage you to log on, check it out. Please send us your feedback. We do want to hear from you, Cayman. You can also participate in a digital survey or by emailing energy@gov.ky. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, James. As many of you will be aware, the Caribbean Utilities Company, or CUC, has launched its Road to Renewables campaign. I'd like to now invite Mr. Richard Hugh of CUC to come to the podium and give us a bit of an update on the work that CUC has going on this important program. Mr. Hugh.
Thank you, Ms. Ahern, and good morning to all. CUC is pleased to have played a part once again in the drafting of our updated national energy policy. This policy sets the stage for an energy transformation that will provide several benefits to residents, businesses, and visitors to our Cayman Islands. CUC vision continues to be to empower the Cayman Islands to be a global leader. A reliable, safe, and clean and affordable energy system is critical for the success of our economy. As a provider of Grand Cayman's electricity grid, CUC plays a key role in facilitating the transformation to a lower carbon and lower cost energy future. Many of the renewable and carbon-free sources are intermittent in nature, and connecting them to the grid is the most effective way of deploying them. The grid allows the excess output from these systems to be shared with others and provides backup when there are shortfalls. CUC has been developing renewable energy as an option for Grand Cayman for over 20 years, and you can find out details about this on our website, www.roadtorenewables.ky. However, I would like to point out a few things that have occurred which have been sort of behind the scenes but play a big role in the orderly transition to a low-carbon future. In 2016, when we were producing our first integrated resource plan and assisting with the drafting of the initial national energy policy, the company underwent a restructuring. We created an entire division of the company that allows us to focus the company's efforts on an orderly and stable energy transformation. In that division, we have many of our engineers, IT professionals, customer-facing staff, project development, and deployment professionals. Many of these team members have years of experience with deploying renewable energy in many locations around the world. In 2017, following a competitive bid process, we were happy to connect the 5-megawatt Bordentown solar farm to the grid. This plant has been providing clean energy to the grid for the past 6 years under a power purchase agreement, and it is now owned by an independent power producer, BMR. We have our 20-megawatt spinning reserve battery project, which was originally conceived to increase the fuel efficiency of our existing diesel power plant. However, it is probably the secondary benefit that is interesting to the renewable energy market, which has been limited to 29 megawatts in scale to ensure continued grid stability. Once the battery is installed in the first part of 2024, we will be able to lift this limit significantly and are keen to complete a study in the coming months, which will help inform how to manage this increase. The company has made substantial investments in the design of large-scale solar and battery power plants that will provide stable output from this intermittent resource and allow dispatch of solar power at night. CUC is keen to partake in OfReg's upcoming RFP for 23 megawatts of dispatchable solar energy and believes that the power plant from that one solicitation can save the country approximately $10 million annually in energy costs compared to the same energy coming from diesel fuel power, and it will also provide 10 to 15% of the grid's energy needs. While we await the opportunity to provide renewable energy, we have also been working on the upgrading of our engines. In December 2022, we signed a contract to upgrade 5 of our manned diesel engines to the latest specifications and largely prepare them for operation on natural gas. The project will bring benefits even before natural gas arrives on the island, as customers can look forward to higher fuel efficiency from these engines, meaning less fuel burn for the energy they need and less emissions as well. On the consumer renewables side, CUC started the CORE program in 2012. The program has gone through several iterations and has provided customers with an opportunity to invest in renewables to supplement their energy usage. The DER, or Distributed Energy Resource Program, was added later to facilitate larger systems for commercial customers. And to date, these programs have provided 24 megawatts in aggregate solar capacity And combined with the Bordentown Solar Project, there are times in the day when the sun is shining brightest that over 25% of our power is now coming from solar. This, however, is still only 3.3% of our energy on a 24-hour basis, a number that will increase quickly once utility-scale projects are approved. Nonetheless, since the inception of the core program, CUC has purchased 125.5 million kilowatt hours of renewable energy from consumer systems and the Bordentown solar plant. This is enough energy to provide nearly 10,000 homes with energy for a whole year and has avoided the burning of approximately 6.6 million gallons of fuel and reduced CO2 emissions by 80,000 tons. Lastly, but very importantly, I would mention our ongoing efforts in educating the public on energy efficiency and conservation, with frequent information distributions through social media, bill inserts, and on our website. We have installed smart meters that give valuable information to customers on their electricity consumption every 15 minutes, which can aid in managing and reducing energy consumption. Energy conservation is the most effective way to reduce the carbon footprint and consumers' cost of energy. The future of our nation's energy transformation is bright. CUC is committed to providing energy to the country with the same safe, reliable, stable, and world-class service as we have been doing for the last 57 years, while facilitating the transformation of the grid to a low-carbon future. I want to thank the Ministry for the opportunity to contribute to this new draft revision of the National Energy Policy, and also thank my colleagues on the National Energy Policy Committee. And I look forward to all the feedback from the public, our customers. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that informative update from CUC. We're now going to move into the question and answer portion of our digital forum. So just a reminder that you can submit your questions by commenting on the live stream feed on social media or by emailing us at energy@gov.ky. So joining me today on our virtual panel are Kristen Smith, James Whitaker, and they're joined now by Louis Boucher, who is the Deputy Executive Director of Energy and Utilities with OfReg, which is the Utility Regulation and Competition Office of the Cayman Islands, and Mr. Richard Hugh, who is the President and CEO of CUC, the Caribbean Utilities Company. Also with us in studio today are some other members of the Energy Policy Council, who we can also call on for their expertise should the questions require. On your screen, you'll see the current makeup and membership of the Energy Policy Council. The council members are appointed by Cabinet and serve 5-year terms. There are 13 members, 12 of whom are voting members, including a mix of civil society representatives, government representatives, and utility representatives. So we're going to start off with some questions that we received in advance of today. And I'm going to start, actually, Louis, with you. So the question was, noting that OfReg has a very important role to play in terms of supporting renewable energy growth here in the Cayman Islands, can you tell us a bit more about some of the projects that OfReg is progressing to incentivize investment in renewable energy?
Sure. Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, everybody. Part of the question is, some of the challenges that we face at OfReg, and one of those challenges is balancing stakeholder interests. The cost of electricity, as we know, is already prohibitively high in the Cayman Islands, and when we first introduced the core program, as Mr. Hugh alluded to before in 2012, the rates were really high, and the reason why they were high was to incentivize renewables because they weren't kicking off, and the rates, being high, once people caught on to how well they can do by putting in systems, it just exploded. And then we were faced with a new challenge, was how do we now balance the interests of other consumers who are paying for it? So we had to progressively bring the rates down to better align with the economics of solar panels, because we know that the cost of the equipment has come down over the years. And but to answer the question moving forward, we are working on a utility scale project. I mean, there are two parts in terms of solar energy. There are two parts of the equation. I mean, there's utility scale, and then there's rooftop consumer owned. And right now, the 29 megawatts limit that we have on the total of the 5 megawatt utility in Boddentown and the other 22 megawatts for consumer owned, we're already at 7% of the electricity generation or the electricity sales coming from renewables, even though they're not on the grid, not fully on the grid yet. And we are looking at moving into utility scale, which, as Richard alluded to before, will basically double up on our actions. So the efforts that we put into utility scale, the results we'll see results much quicker. And the new target of 30% by 2030, we're looking at 20 to 25% by 2025, just with putting on this new utility scale project that we're about to issue an RFP on. And also the battery energy storage, I'm thinking that it's going to provide at least another 3%. So those are some of the things we're working on right now.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for that.
Sure.
My next question is for you, James. As chairman of the Energy Policy Council, what's your perspective on the key changes that have been made or being proposed to be made to the policy, and how you think they will help accelerate progress towards the targets in the policy?
So I would say generally the changes that we've made are certainly an upgrade on the old policy. Specifically putting in targets around electric vehicles, increasing the renewable energy target to be more aggressive. I think the key is obviously going to be the implementation. That's what it comes down to. And then in this policy, we've got a lot more detail around who's responsible, when they're responsible, and ultimately, hopefully, teeth that it has to be followed. And so I think the policy in general is definitely an upgrade over the last one. And I think the key for us as the Energy Policy Council, as well as a country, is to make sure that it's actioned and implemented.
That's great. Yeah. The action is so important from the policy.
As the Premier said, it's just words on paper if we don't action it.
That's right. Absolutely. Thank you for that. We had a question come in. We've had an update on what CUC is doing here in Grand Cayman. And there's a question as to whether Island Energy or Cayman Brac Power and Light would be able to provide us with a bit of the update on the efforts that's going on in the sister islands. And I think Andrew Small of DART is going to come and take this question for us.
Yes, thank you. First of all, just want to give apologies from Jonathan Tibbetts, who is the general manager of Island Energy, who's unable to make it here today. I am a DART employee and part of the asset management team that supports IEL. So I've been asked to, just read this prepared statement, just highlighting what the management of IEL is doing. So Island Energy, previously known as Cayman Brac Power and Light, submitted a proposed business case to OfReg earlier this month to demonstrate the feasibility of renewable energy generation as a replacement energy source to diesel generators in the sister islands. Island Energy planned to pursue an energy mix that consists of approximately 50% renewable energy in the Brac and 75% in Little Cayman. These initial targets is a result of thorough technical analysis that have been ongoing and will provide energy customers in both islands with cost-effective solutions to meet the challenges of aging diesel infrastructure. At this penetration level of renewable energy, the level of emissions per capita from electricity generation in the sister island should decrease below the 2017 NEP aspirational goal, which was 4.8 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent per capita by 2030. By reducing the utilities' reliance on diesel, we will reduce the volatility of consumer bills as well. IEL aims to move forward with progressive rollout as soon as approval from OfReg is received.
Thank you very much for that. The next question, I think, will either be for you, Kristen, or possibly for the Director of Planning, who's also in the studio with us today. And it's come in from one of our viewers. Would the government consider adding stipulations to the building code to mandate minimum green energy specifications for all new buildings? I don't know, Kristen, if you want to take that one, or
Sure.
Mr. Pandui?
I can start.
Okay.
Actually, as part of funding that we received from the European Union for energy efficiency program, we're looking into the CARICOM energy efficiency building code to determine if that would be an appropriate code to implement for the Cayman Islands. It is something that was created specifically for the Caribbean under the International Code Council, and the EU funding has allowed us to contract a consultant to assess this code. He's already been on island to meet with members from the Contractors Association and the Department of Planning. So we are looking to determine if this code would be suitable. We are also looking to determine if mandating insulation and upgrading minimum standards for air conditioning would also be appropriate. These are things that to help homeowners to reduce their energy consumption. So yes, these are things we're looking at.
That's great. Okay, thanks very much for that. All right, and then actually, Kristen, I'm going to come back to you again and ask if you can tell everybody a little bit more about some of the projects that the ministry has been progressing to support the proposed transition to renewable energy and to help people increase the energy efficiency and also embrace alternative transport.
Absolutely. So this past year, we have been focusing on supporting the council with the revised national energy policy. We've also been doing lots of public education on energy efficiency through demonstration projects. So not just social media, but in 2021, we had a competition for a home energy makeover. And that really spurred something, and we were able to use that to apply for, to submit a proposal to the European Union for a grant for a bigger energy efficiency proposal. We were awarded $1.2 million for this proposal for energy efficiency for public sector buildings as well as residential buildings built under the national energy policy. So we're working away on that. That started in January this year and will conclude in April 2024. And out of this also spurred the CHEER program, which the Premier talked about earlier, which is energy efficiency retrofits for Caymanians. And that started in July, and the application expires, deadline is August 31st. So we're encouraging people to apply for that as well. And this is to really encourage people to get on board with retrofitting your home, assessing your home to determine if retrofits would help you to reduce your energy consumption. So along with the retrofits, we've also been doing the DIY energy audit campaign for everybody to assess your homes. We were at the Builders Expo pushing this campaign and energy efficiency measures. We just, as part of that, we also had incentives, which was winners. So Home Gas, Cooling Pros, Foam Pros provided prizes for winners who entered that competition. We did lunch and learns with the business community. And I think as a result of that, we've seen a number of banks come forward with loans for energy efficiency retrofits. So grateful to them coming forward with that. And the government waived duty for 5 energy efficiency materials to support homeowners for retrofits. So spray foam, foam sheets, low E-film, home energy monitors, and smart thermostats are now duty-free to encourage people to retrofit their homes with these items. And recently, OfReg approved 1 megawatt of renewable energy for capacity for the Cayman Islands government to use in public sector buildings. So that's something we're going to start focusing on for the next year. And for the remainder of 2023, we're looking at finalizing the energy policy, as well as focusing on the Resembid program and the grant that we received. So that will be our focus for the remaining of this year.
Great, lots of things going on. The next question I'm actually going to ask Mr. Hugh maybe to have a go at. There's been some of the discussion around the transition. One of the challenges or one of the concerns that people have talked about is this idea of grid stability. I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about what's meant by grid stability and how renewable energy systems might impact that.
Okay, so we're fortunate here in Grand Cayman to have a very reliable system. So our aim has been 2 hours of outage per year per customer. And we are just about achieving that. We're slightly over two hours last year, and we are on target to be under 2 hours this year. So how the grid works is that there's, in a fraction of a second, it's in milliseconds, you have to have a balance of the energy coming onto the grid with the energy being used by consumers on the grid. If at any time there's an imbalance, whether there's more energy being produced than being used, in that scenario you will have your frequency will drop, and likely the voltage will drop. So we guarantee you 60 hertz plus or minus a margin, which is set by engineering standards worldwide. So 60 hertz, 120, 240 volts, if that's your service. Some customers, commercial customers, are at 480 volts. But we have to be within a certain range of that voltage for your equipment to work properly in your home, your appliances, your lights, everything. So if we have a situation where there is a large block of intermittent resources, such as now we have 24 megawatts of solar on rooftops, and with the Town Solar 29. So if we think we have 29 megawatts of reliable power on the grid and we're relying on that, and suddenly a cloud comes over, a squall comes over, and it all disappears within seconds, then we're suddenly left with an imbalance. As it is now, CUC's diesel engines have to quickly ramp up to make up that difference. Otherwise, we're going to have to shed customers off the grid. And you will see your lights blinking, and you'll know something's going wrong, something big on the grid. So that's the reason we've sort of curtailed. So right now, we're running in a mode where we have more diesels online than we actually need if it wasn't for the solar. And they are able to ramp up their capacity quickly when there's a change in the output of solar. In the future, with our battery project, the battery is going to be charging and discharging to sort of help the diesels balance the grid. Without the reliable power of the diesel engines and the battery, the intermittent solar will cause grid instability.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And we've actually come to the end of our time this morning. I want to ask everyone to please thank our panelists with a big round of applause for taking the questions this morning. Thank you very much. Also, a big thank you to our speakers today, the Premier, the Deputy Governor, Kristen, James, and Mr. Hugh. Thank you very much for making the time to join us today for this presentation. And a big thank you to everyone who has tuned in today as well. Just a reminder that the policy is out for your input, and that the public comment period closes at the end of this month, August 31st. You can find it on the government website. You can also go to energy.gov.ky to find the policy, the proposed implementation plan, and lots of useful tips and tricks to improve energy efficiency in your life and hopefully make some savings, help us cut our carbon emissions, and maybe save some dollars on your energy bill while you're at it. Thank you all very much for joining us. We do look forward to receiving your feedback, and have a wonderful day.